7:03 p.m. We will start with our roll call. Mr. Keene. Here. Mr. Fournier. Here. Mr. Punchak. Here. Mr. Porter. Here. Mr. Menard. Here. Ms. Kennedy is absent, and the chair is here. Next order of business, review the minutes from the October 14th meeting. Huh? I don't know why there'd be none, but we have, you're right, it does say none, Bobby, but.
Let's do them next time. We'll do them next time.
Okay, then we'll do those next time. That's correct. Is that Mr. Iglesias? Yeah. Oh, he thought he was gonna be here. Okay. Disclosure. Anyone on the board need to disclose any potential conflicts on the matters before the board this evening? No. Okay. Disclosure and notice. Planning board members shall disclose any ex parte communications about any contested or material adjudicatory facts or opinions regarding the merits of any application before the board this evening. Hearing none. Okay, so our voting members for this evening, Mr. Keene, Mr. Fournier, Mr. Punchak, Mr. Porter, and myself. All right. So, one order of old business for discussion, consider an action, RTM Realty, Plat 1, Lot 470, minor land development, preliminary plan application. The applicant, the owner of MTR Guns and Ammo, is proposing to add an indoor shooting range at his property on Quaker Highway. So, Bobby, you want to walk us through your
Yeah, this is
summary?
just in the absence of a planner. We couldn't write a decision, so in your staff report, I gave you findings of fact, and you can determine whether those are what you would like me to include in the decision, and then we need to determine whether we support the 2 special use permits and the variance, and write a recommendation to the zoning board.
Okay. Thank you. So, board. There is a special use permit required for this, for indoor recreation, and it's a multi-use 2 zone. And a second one, because the property is in the Water Supply Protection Overlay District. The dimensional variances for rear setbacks. So, questions and comments from the board?
I just have one question, really. So the addition's 20 feet by 46 feet. Is that basically just where the range is? So the range is
No,
only...
it was quoted wrong in the paper. That's where,
I didn't read the paper, I'm reading this.
there was an article in the paper, and it was Val Reed last week, and she had quoted it wrong. That's where the addition is going, to square my building off, but the range is gonna be that back section of the.
So it's
building,
bigger than the,
not just that 20.
so it's bigger than the 20 by 46.
It's gonna be 25 yards, 75 feet. It's gonna be about 11, 12, 19.
So in essence, you could have asked for, just to put the addition on initially, and maybe not had concerns about putting a gun range in there until another point, or, I guess.
I'll put the addition on for the other.
Okay.
I
Can
need
you-
the addition for consideration.
Not picking on you, but for anyone who does want to talk, if you could go up to the microphone. Yep, so that'll allow for the sound, because we are, yeah, we have our viewing audience at home as well. They play along with us, the home game.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I was just
Yep.
curious as to what the gun range was going to encompass inside the building. That
Yeah,
was-
no, in order to put the range in that building, I get a square off my building in the back. The area where the range is going, it's gonna be about 11 or 12 lanes. It's gonna be 25 yards, 75 feet. So in order to get the range in that back end of the building, I get a square off the building.
So it uses up a good portion of the building.
Yes, it will be.
Is there do you have any graphic for us to put up or anything like that, as far as a presentation of the project?
Not right now. I mean, we did have a layout of where the proposal, she had it last week that was up here.
It's there under last week's.
Oh,
Carl?
Carl, do we, thank you. Oh, we didn't do that, I'm sorry. All right. And could you state your, for the official records, just state your name?
Yes, my name is Robert
read that.
Poole, from North
Um,
Smithfield.
Probably have to go to the end.
There we go. Now we're talking. So to your question, what, your answer to Mr. Punchak's question, could you just point out where we were talking
Sure.
about there on?
The proposed addition is up in that far right-hand corner. So I'm squaring off the building, there's a jog in my building right now, and I need that to be able to put the range in. So the range is gonna be down in that area, but it's gonna be going all the way across.
But filling in the jog is smaller than the actual range.
Yes, the jog, is a lot smaller than, yes.
Right,
Yep.
okay.
Because the total length of the building is 110 feet, and the range is gonna be 105 feet,
Right.
and it's gonna be 50 feet from the back coming down for the lanes.
What other uses are in the building or will be in the building?
There's a store presently right now in the building.
front?
In the front. I do have a machine shop in there right now, but I'm phasing out the machine shop. I'm gonna keep a couple of machines, for repairs and stuff. But besides that, there'll be some classrooms in there, so we can give, safety courses and stuff.
So I would assume at some point, like, there's gotta be a company that specializes in designing gun ranges.
Oh, yeah, no, this company that I got, they're out of Utah, they build ranges all over the world. The guy that's building the range is willing to come out to put the presentation for the zoning board. They're from Utah. It's not a fly-by-night, operation. I mean, I'm spending a lot of money. No, they put all steel plates, I mean, we gotta put concrete block walls up, 14 feet high, 105 feet long. They gotta be all, loaded with cement, rebar, steel plates on the ceiling, ventilation system.
Nothing like bowling lanes.
That's a lot more than bowling lanes.
So just our recommendation.
The reason I'm asking is, just
Before
you
we
know,
move
to-
forward with that.
get it out there that, yes, it's not gonna be like, we're gonna start shooting guns inside
Oh,
this
no,
building,
no, no.
so I
This
just-
is certified company, and I mean, yeah.
Well, at some point you'd be presenting, I mean, I understand you're looking for our recommendation.
Right.
For the variances.
Yep.
But at some point, we're gonna see full plans that.
Yeah, no, I plan on doing it at the zoning board meeting.
Yeah.
The guy from, like I say, from the range company is gonna fly out from Utah and he'll put a presentation on. I got an architect right now working on little plans, rough drafts of
Right.
what we wanna do.
And could you point out the variance, I assume, is at top,
Yeah, top,
right at that top right corner?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Anyone else on the planning board have any questions or comments?
Maybe it was just you and David that would have questions, because Mike, Rich, and I, and Bill went through it last, couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's right, that's right. And there's no public hearing, so we can move to a vote?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be looking for a vote. Bobby's already you put together positive findings for this. So I'd be looking for a motion to accept or not the proposed variances.
Do we wanna do the variances first, or are we voting on the
We can-
preliminary?
Well, we're not voting on the preliminary plan, we're voting on the, on our recommendation to the zoning board.
Okay, just a recommendation tonight?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we recommend this, project to the zoning board, and support a variance for the setback. Can we do them both at the same time?
Yeah, Mr. Do we need to do one for each, or can we do one for all three?
You can do all three if you just state them for the record, Mr. Chairman.
So, the recommend the variance for the setback and for the water overlay,
Mhm.
special use.
Right. And the special use.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to make a positive recommendation on all three of the requested variances. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second for Mr. Fournier? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Fournier?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So, you have our positive recommendation?
Your blessing. Well, thank you very much.
Right.
Next step is what, the zoning board?
Pardon
My
me?
next step is the zoning board, right?
Yep.
Okay,
So
thank you very much.
it says it's preliminary plan application, though. Do we have to
He came with
act on
preliminary
that?
plan because he's a minor.
No, so, it's just on the,
Yes.
On the recommendation?
just on the recommendation.
I wrote the decision, but I can't.
All right, let's see. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. We haven't discussed.
Let me get that from there. Okay, next on the agenda. For discussion, consideration, and action.
Excuse me,
Oh, I'm
just,
sorry.
just a quick question. Do you want to vote on having hit the final plan approved administratively? We will have a planner at that time? Or do you want it to come back to the board?
That's a good question, thank you. Thoughts on that? We'll have a new planner, we'll have an experienced planner.
Kind of complicated issue, I don't have a problem with it.
So can we rewind for a second then? If we didn't take any action on his preliminary plan. We,
No, you approved it.
You weren't here, I don't
last
think.
week, the
Yeah.
last meeting, okay,
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
Right.
So this was just the recommendation, gotcha.
Any thoughts on,
I think it's a pretty straightforward,
to approve administrative?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll make
All
a
right.
motion that we allow the planner to approve it administratively.
okay. We have a second? We have a second? Mr. Fournier? Oh, sorry, Mr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Fournier?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
All right, so, next on the agenda, for discussion, consideration, and action, Slater Court, Plat 4, lots 270, major subdivision master plan. The applicant's proposing 6 two-bedroom duplex condominium units for a total of 12 units. This will be a retirement community. Planning board action will be to certify the application complete in the absence of a town planner. So, Bobby, could you give us your summary? So this is really just reviewing what was
We're
submitted.
really just, I sent you the checklist.
Right, for submitting,
You just need to actually certify complete or incomplete.
right. So, anybody have the checklist?
Just two questions I would have are, since we wouldn't know, was the, the fees?
Yes.
And then, and I don't know how this would really work, but initial written comments on master plan from the following agencies, wouldn't that technically come after?
No.
Or,
Will you,
So I actually looked into this. There's a section in the subdivision regulations that, Article 3.7A3, all comments from town departments shall be solicited by the applicant. So if the applicant hasn't provided, I think Tom used to do this as a courtesy
Yeah.
for the applicants, but it's clearly laid out that it's their responsibility to get the comments. So my impression is that this, because those are absent of this application, that it's not complete. And I would say that we don't certify it complete at this time.
I'd agree.
I agree with that, too. Is there anything else, just for completeness, though? Is there anything else missing? So the applicant knows.
The only thing, the only thing that, looking through it, and I don't know if we're, should be talking about this, but the whole well thing and not being in a wellhead protection, I definitely would do a little more research on that, but if, it's not gonna say it's not, complete due to my concerns, but Jeff brought up, I would definitely agree with.
Yeah, and I would also add, they're asking for that the review of the DEM and DOT be waived for the initial review. I would say that that's part of the comments that they need to solicit
Right.
prior to for the application. So again, should be part of the application, and that's absent as well.
Yeah, that's standard. Standard for us. Any other comments? All right, so, motion?
Yes.
We don't have to, there is no motion, right? Or is
Yeah,
there?
there is.
So-
There is.
so would
Yes,
we-
you have to.
Uh,
we have
So
to
for
vote
this,
on-
would we make a motion to certify it complete and then vote in the negative in that instance, like we have in the past? Or would we say?
And for the, stating the reasons why, so the
Right,
assistant planner and/or can send that list
Sure.
to the applicant, so they can get it to them, and then
So-
theoretically get it
so
back
we're
on
not,
the.
so we're not making the motion in the positive then, we're making the motion in the negative for the following reasons.
You can certify it incomplete.
Okay. I'm gonna make,
Yes.
I'm gonna make that motion to certify this application incomplete, under Article 3.7A3 with the comments from the town entities and, other, state agencies such as the DEM and the DOT.
So we have a motion?
Second?
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Fournier?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
And chair votes yes.
Same thing with Johnson Paving. We're just looking for a
Mhm.
certification of complete or certification of
Right.
incomplete.
So let me just officially read it, that's what I get to do. So our next item on the agenda,
Yeah.
as Bobby has mentioned, is master plan, major land development for for Johnson Paving, Plat 17, lots 108, 109, 110, administrative subdivision. Applicant proposed to move a lot line within 2 lots. Planning board's action is to certify the application complete in the absence of the town planner or not. So, comments on that one?
Again, looking at the checklist that needs to be adhered to, one item is that it requires a Class 4 survey. They've called out that they've provided a Class 1. And then item number 11, location and size of existing building structures, utilities, improvements. I drive by that every day. There's some structures there that are not on the plan. So again, I would say that this application is not complete.
I'd agree. The other thing that I noticed, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
one other thing I noticed, same thing was, the buildings, but I find it hard to believe that there's no bounds or iron pipes or anything out there. I didn't see any of, any existing structures, called off. Everything was a rod to be set, so that was the only other concern.
Okay.
Maybe there isn't, but it is a state highway, so
Right.
it would seem there's gotta be something.
Mr. Fournier?
Question. It says a minimum of a Class 4 survey. Is a Class 1 survey more than a Class 4 survey? So I'm saying it doesn't have the Class 4 survey, but because they highlighted that they did a Class 1. I don't know if Class 1 is a
Oh.
lower survey
Yeah,
or a higher
usually
survey.
that is the case.
Would it be out of order to ask an engineer that question?
We might
Because we
have,
do have an engineer.
and we have engineers in the room,
Yes.
yes.
Class 1 boundary survey is more accurate than a Class 4.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. Usually that's,
So they
The pecking
covered
order.
on the survey plot.
Okay.
because it is a minimum of, right? And,
Yeah.
yeah, they wouldn't require something lower and not accept greater. Thank you. All right, but that leaves us with, what was the other?
Item 11,
Item
The
11,
buildings.
existing buildings, structures.
So if there's nothing else, we'll be looking for a motion.
I will make the motion that we do not certify this complete, because item,
The motion is to certify incomplete.
certify incomplete based on, item number 11 of the checklist is not, in the plans.
Second.
So we have a motion, we have a second for Mr. Punchak. Mr. Keen?
Yes.
Mr. Fournier?
Yes.
Mr. Bunchak?
Yes.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. Okay. Now the headline event. Next item on the agenda for discussion, consideration, action, master plan, major land development, Old Louis Quizet condominiums, Plat 13, lots 111, 123, 143. The project is a proposed 30-unit condominium development. Just looking from the notes. This is a revisited project from 2019,
Yeah,
I
we
believe.
received master plan
Yep.
last year, 2019.
2019, I believe it was.
And so we're revisiting that, we're redoing that,
Right, but we're starting with a new application,
right.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll explain, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So I was gonna let the applicant make their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, John Mancini on behalf of the owner and the applicant, BB/WW Properties LLC. Properties noted as Assessor's Plat 13, lots 111, 123, and 143. So as the board recalls, this project was initially approved as at the master plan stage. It was for 21 condominium units. It was part of the last parcel of the overall development scheme noted as Dowling Village. It was subject to an existing special use permit which provided the use. The applicant proceeded in front of this board back in late September, early October with regards to that layout, creating 21 condominium units. The board on October 7th, 2019 did grant master plan approval. We then went into a pandemic a little bit after that and have been working on continuing the development of the project and have also submitted for our state approvals. During that time period, the applicant had the opportunity to revamp the project by essentially acquiring an additional piece of property, which is Assessor's Plat 13, lot 111. The acquisition of lot 111 was enabled the developer and the applicant to better situate, configure the units, and so in doing so, the applicant is now proceeding in front of you with a request to modify the existing master plan to permit 30 residential condominium units, to modify the layout as well as to be further described by Dupree Engineering. We have also made application with DEM. You'll note that the plans that you have with respect to the master plan are much more detailed and more elevated than you would normally receive at the master plan stage, and that is for two reasons. One, we've had the benefit of being able to further delineate the engineering of the project since October of 2019 while we were going through the DEM process. And in doing that, we also incorporated the additional 9 units as part of the addition of lot 111. And secondly, we were already at the engineering stage when we did this project, or I should say when we reconfigured this project to increase the condominium units. We also provided a traffic report back in 2019. We've updated that traffic report with regards to the existing, or I should say with regards to the additional condominium units. The condominium units layout has not changed much, except that they have, essentially become aesthetically more pleasing, better configured. And if I will, Mr. Chairman, for illustrative purposes, I'd like to offer these plans through the chair.
This is different from the packet that we already have?
I'm not sure if they're in the packet.
Oh, okay, yeah, we don't have the photo.
Creative,
Okay.
they're not part of our master plan, just to give the board a sense.
Okay.
As part of the application, we are doing 30, as I said, 30 residential dwelling units with 20%, which will be affordable. So 6 out of 30 units will be low to moderate income units as required as such. We've also presented a fiscal impact study as part of our application that was completed by Mr. Lombardo, Joseph Lombardo, in July of 2021. So, Mr. Chairman, our quest here is to seek the modification of the existing master plan to update the same with the additional units in the configuration as proposed, and we will then proceed to finalize our DEM approval and then reappear in front of the board for preliminary. So with that, Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions of me, I'd like to get Dupree Engineering to walk you through the site, talk about the drainage, talk about traffic, and talk about configuration.
I would like to clarify one
Yeah.
thing, so, because we've talked about how this is starting, you're starting from a new application. Yet we're talking about updating the old master plan. So in a sense, we're really starting from a clean slate, although I realize you've already done a lot of work and you're
Yeah.
capitalizing on that, which is great. But from a procedural standpoint, we are starting from the application stage.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. You know, there's two things. I mean, we could come back with the existing master plan which was approved in 2019, we can come back with a preliminary plan with a DM approval on that preliminary plan for 30 condo units and say that there's a, distinction difference between the master plan and the preliminary plan. And I think what we've done instead of doing that is coming back with a new master plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right to classify it as a new master plan and as a new project, because essentially we're restarting the clock over again. And starting with a brand-new plan, but I call it a revised, modified master plan because I want you to consider the thought process that already went into the original master plan of 2019, because that approval is still there.
Right.
And the time clock on that hasn't run out yet. We're still vested with that. We have a DM permit in place, so that's still there. So, but this plan is a new plan. It's a new master plan. It would be a separate approval. It's a different concept. It's a different makeup of parcels. It's a different makeup of units. And it's also a different makeup as far as affordable component that the town is getting. So to answer your question, to clarify, yes, this is a new master plan.
Because there's a point where you have to decide to
To
essentially
go,
terminate
right,
the
right,
old
you
one.
can't race the boat, you can't
Right.
race the same horses,
Right,
whatever that saying is, but yeah, but you're right.
okay.
So with that, I'll have Jason from Dupree walk through the plan set.
Good evening. For the record, Jason Clough with Dupree Engineering. So we have here this, one of the site plans that was prepared, and the lot that was added is this lot here. This is lot 111. The previous layout had two buildings. It had a building located in here and a smaller building located in here with a total of 21 units. Then there was parking that was located on both sides of the buildings. So this layout, with adding lot 111, it's really a much better layout. It's more efficient. It's just overall, it's much better. Everything just kind of fits together better in this piece. So as we've incorporated this lot 111, so we have a single building now with a total of 30 units. We have the parking field that's located, in this area. We're proposing a total of 61 spaces. The town requirement for this use is 1.5 spaces per unit, which would be 45 spaces, and we're proposing 61. These are two-bedroom units, and as John mentioned, we're pretty far along in the design process. We have an application pending with DEM. Stormwater is being handled by an underground infiltration basin located here, as well as an above-ground infiltration basin located there. We have public utilities, sewer and water coming in from Old Esquisite Pike. We're also proposing electric and telecommunication services, as well as natural gas. Some other items to note on the parcels now, we have there's two existing residential structures located on these lots, and then formerly there was a residential structure that was located on this lot, which has been demolished earlier on as part of the development of Dowling Village. And In addition to, we're here tonight for the master plan. In addition to that, we'll be back before this board for the preliminary plan. We have pending with DEM, as I mentioned, a preliminary determination application. And then, after the preliminary plan, we would be seeking final. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
For an orientation, if I could, one sec, on that drawing, could you point out where because there's a significant slope that goes up to Dowling Village, and there's a few of the businesses that are close to the edge. Could you just
Yep.
sort of point out where they are, just to give a
Yes,
point
so
of reference?
the slope is located in this area.
Mhm.
So you have the Planet Fitness that's located right in here, then the
okay.
Firestone, so that's kind of that wing of Dowling
Right.
Village right there. And you have the site driveway located here with Old Loisquisset Pike.
Yeah.
Old Loisquisset Pike, the access is only from 146A is only in on the bottom
That's
half, and then you
right,
get the
one
signalized intersection by CVS.
And if I recall, there's power lines, National Grid has a,
Yes, the National Grid easement comes through this area. It's wide enough for another set of lines, but there's I guess one set of lines that are running through the easement now.
okay, thank you. Mr. King, you had your hand up?
Yes, I believe that's the part of town that there's a property owner on the west side of Quaker Highway, or property owners perhaps, that are experiencing problems with water, or draining from the east side of the road over into the west side of the road. Would this proposal improve that situation, make it worse, or impact?
The stormwater system is designed to mitigate stormwater for up to the 100-year design storm. So we're infiltrating stormwater in these two locations to mitigate the stormwater rates of flow and volume. We've previously received approval from RIDEM for wetlands permit, which included review of the stormwater for the previous development. We're now with an application pending before them for the modified site design, which includes modified drainage. But in this, the end of the day, the same result. We're mitigating the stormwater to not have any negative impact on stormwater leaving the site.
Okay, so better, worse, or the same?
It's designed to not be any worse than existing conditions. There are some reductions in stormwater flow from the site. There's minimal reductions that are occurring based on the stormwater model. I guess the goal, and what we do with the stormwater is to make sure that there's no negative impacts to surrounding properties.
So it's the same or better?
The same or better.
What are the thoughts on the 20-foot retaining wall?
The 20-foot retaining wall?
Well, you got a top of wall elevation of 330 and a bottom of wall elevation of 310. The bottom right, the very south end of that retaining wall.
I mean, with the, as we proceed with the design further, that's an element that will be an important design element. With the nature of the site, we have the slope that's coming off in that area. So we're proposing this retaining wall in here to allow for the parking area to be located there. We're sloping the parking lot as much as we can, but we're also maintaining slopes for the parking area that meet engineering standards, for the parking lot.
My point was more that I would hope that a little more thought is put into the aesthetics of it than just a concrete retaining wall or, precast block retaining wall. The building is attractive and has some faux stone on it, so, maybe some of that could be brought over into making that retaining wall a little bit more attractive.
Yeah, because that's entirely exposed. Like, it's just.
Yeah,
parking in
I mean,
front
it'll
of
be
it.
a significant, surfaces there on that end, so, yeah, this is something that we can make note of.
And then I had two other questions. One was, so, I don't necessarily know that it's going to change my mind, but in the Wright Pierce report, Wright Pierce recommends that the Sewer Commission considers investigating replacement of the pump impeller or consider resizing the pump when a new pump is scheduled to be installed in an effort to operate more efficiently. Would the developer be willing to assist in that manner in any way, if necessary?
I mean, my recollection of that recommendation was just that of the overall operation, they were suggesting, especially if there were more,
But don't things tend to break more quickly if they don't operate at their peak efficiency?
I mean, I would say so. I mean, right now, it's operating on much less flow. I mean, so we're adding more flow into it. I guess it's more or less oversized right now.
Putting it out there.
Okay.
And then the only other thing was on the, and I forget, but on the water, 34 PSI for the fire service, isn't that cutting it kind of close? Doesn't a fire service usually want to have higher pressure than 34?
I mean, ultimately, that will have to be designed, but it meets the standards for what they need. I mean, there's a minimum of 20. We went through the whole model process with the city of Woonsocket to make sure that it wasn't going to have
They're good with
a
it?
detrimental impact. But, I mean, it'll have to be, the pressures that are present will have to be accounted for in the fire service design.
Booster pump, worst case scenario?
Yeah, worst case.
It's not the amount of, it's not the pressure that matters, it's the amount of water that's coming out at that pressure. So, like, if you got 50 gallons coming out at 34 pounds, it's not the same as 1,500 gallons coming out at 34 pounds.
But
So that's
isn't that based on the size of the pipe?
Well, that affects it, definitely, the size of the
But what the model shows is that they can get the water that's needed to fight the fires out of the system that they have, and then, they're gonna have the fire apparatus that'll be able to take that water and fight a fire, or they hook it up to the connections on the building to run the sprinklers.
That's all I got.
Oh, just to point out, in the letter from CDM Smith, they do say, it is recommended that the Woonsocket Fire Department confirm that the fire protection capability simulated is adequate for the site prior to tie-in. So that could simply be one of the conditions that we put on to this master plan. Because I was gonna say, we have quite a few conditions for their previous master plan, and, because it's a similar size, I would still say continue some of those conditions. I was actually gonna ask about, one of those things that we do list in our previous conditions was the, site lighting. I didn't see any site lighting on any of the civil plans, so I didn't know if you had any, idea where those would be placed, and if we, as I always do, would request that they become dark sky compliant.
I mean, yeah, they would be, directed away from adjacent properties, dark sky compliant. They would be, basically they'd just be located in the, around the parking area to light the parking area to levels to meet the standards for the parking area. But yes, directed away from adjacent areas, directed away from wetlands.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
The only other thing is, looking at sheet 7 for the site layout plan, I do notice that you guys have quite a few along the north side of the building, the 3 to 4 foot rose bay rhododendrons. I would just request that, to be considerate of neighbors on all sides, that we look at plantings along At the very minimum, the south side, I know there's a complex that's down that way, just to, you know, break up the views of the park, you know, this expansive parking lots. So that would be one thing to take a look at.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. I believe there's some existing vegetation there that's
Okay.
providing that. And then we also have the electric easement in that area to consider
Okay.
as well. The plantings that were along the backside that you're referring to, those were items that were related to the DEM and the proximity to
Sure.
the wetland there.
Okay. And then, one thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention is that, you know, they're required to have 45 spaces, they're providing 61. So, you know, I understand it's a residence, but sometimes with the mass transit right up the road from down for the buses and everything, if there might be a consideration to reduce some of that parking and reduce some of that paved area. That's all I got.
Was there not,
With
not
the,
understood?
I mean,
or-
with the parking that we did, I know the last time that this was before the board, there was, I mean, I think there was actually discussion about, you know, making sure that they had some extra parking beyond what's required by the zoning, so you've got that. I mean, these are two-bedroom units, so you just wanna make sure we've got, you know, parking
Right.
for visitor parking that can be designated, as well as for the units themselves.
One thing that might be kind of nice for a resident there is there anywhere outside where you could have like a picnic area or some kind of, you know, passive recreation area, just to be able to get outside and spend some time?
I mean, we do have limited space, but I mean, there are some green space areas, so we can definitely look at that. I mean, this layout is much more efficient than the last one.
Yeah.
So we do have
Definitely
some
is.
more room to work with here.
And I feel like, and I think it was proven that it would be very difficult, but any type of access directly from the housing up to the shopping plaza, so that you don't have to go down Wisquizit Pike to CVS and then up
You can
around,
walk.
across the
Yeah.
road at the bottom of the hill and across the sidewalk when you get to the top of the hill.
Yeah, I mean, that would be difficult to make that access.
Why is
but,
that?
Sorry?
Why is that?
Just I mean, there's a lot of grade difference between where we
Oh,
are and,
yeah, no doubt it would require sort of like by the old town hall where they had the, you know, sort of a zigzag step path. But, and I know we brought this up, you know, a couple of years ago as well, but it either reduces a lot of the pedestrian traffic, it also, you know, people don't have to get in their car, drive up, to go to something that by a stone's throw is 100 feet from, or, you know, 150 feet from where they live, but they have to drive a half a mile to get to it. And personally, I think it would add value to, you know, for people who just want to get up in the morning, walk over to Planet Fitness, you know, that could be a selling point.
They're gonna work out getting there.
Exactly, and then they get that cool down period coming down the hill, you know?
we can have a rock wall to climb up.
There you go.
There you go, that's how they get up and down, it's a rock wall.
I'd like to pile on to that, if you don't mind, is, you know, a 20-foot retaining wall is awfully dangerous for people that, at the top, if someone falls, that's a long fall. But putting in that sort of a switchback type of a walkway would break up, or basically terrace the retaining wall into shorter sections.
That's a good point, if you think of terracing that wall, then it sort of lends itself, I'll flip it the other way around, it lends itself to being able to put in the steps.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we can look at
Yeah,
here.
20-foot vertical drop is,
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
with the retaining walls, as with other walls in the site, the Dowling Village site, stuff like that would have fences to
right.
protect from falls.
Well,
And again, to the point made earlier about the retaining wall and just from an aesthetic, terracing it, probably with some plantings here and there, would go a long way, I think, towards making that a more attractive, than just kind of the Great Wall
Okay, I mean, it's something that
of.
can definitely be looked at. Thank you.
I have
Really?
one more comment. I'm surprised, Rich, you didn't make this comment with Booth Pond. Along the south side of the site, underneath the power lines, would there be the potential of creating some sort of walking path for residents so that they could essentially connect to the Booth Pond preservation area that's behind the existing complex and Lowe's right now? I know there's some grading issues, but could just be a simple dirt path that would allow folks to go kind of to and from their point of residence and up to the recreation area.
Well, it needs to be pedestrians only, because that's a
Yeah.
National Grid right of way as well.
So, because I mean, it almost goes right up to the new road that's right by the Petco parking lot. So there could be some consideration for that.
I mean, yeah, we can look into that. I mean, I have to see where that lot ends. I mean, how it connects in with the rest of the lots, but something that we can look at.
Okay.
And to pile onto that, a recreational easement, for public access would be a good thing as well. So that the public would have access to that
To that path.
through the property.
Is there fencing planned to, I'll say fence in the parking area and stuff? Because if you do something like that and allow public, people don't want other people just roaming around the parking lot where their cars are.
Where do they park? Do they
Yeah.
end up taking a tenant's parking
Yeah.
space? I guess you could
Well,
park at
so for
Aldi.
Booth Pond, the condominium project had to provide 6 spaces for parking spaces for the
Oh.
public
Okay.
to have access to the
And this
pond.
this
So,
already has enough
yeah.
to support
And
that.
as I mean, six spaces would be more than enough for.
They already
Right.
have 15 more than they need, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so there's
Easy to
plenty,
say we could give you 5.
there's plenty here.
Designate
All right.
certain spots.
If there's nothing else on the board, we're gonna open up for an informational meeting.
Just one question. I noticed that there's nothing on the plan, and this is a master plan, so, would the standpipes and that fire department connections be shown on your preliminary plans?
We can show connections on the preliminary
The
plan.
fire department would have to sign off on
Yes.
the preliminary, so,
Yeah.
okay.
So just to, Mr. Chairman, just to recap, so if you refer to the master plan decision back in October of 2019, many of these comments were incorporated in that decision. We have no problem in carrying them over. For example, one of the conditions was a fire department review. The other condition was dark sky compliant lighting to be associated with DM approval, so we don't have an issue with that. And review and approval from both sewer and water authorities. So I think those are all good comments that still relate to and can be incorporated with this. We'll look at the opportunity to do some type of recreational area on site as you described. Take that into account with respect to if it's possible to diminish the amount of parking spaces. I think that may be a difficult thing, but something for us to look at. And then we'll look at addressing 2 issues with one solution. That is the decorative wall with more of a terrace look, and then see if there's an ability to access this parcel with Dowling Village. That was a major discussion we had last time, and the issue that we had was simply the topography and the difficulty of that topography. This site is a lot different than the site that you're referring to, Mr. Keen, which is the part of the original master plan approval for Dowling Village, which called for apartments that were very close to Booth Pond, and as part of that, part of the reasons for putting the residential at that portion was to allow direct access to Booth Pond, which otherwise was not permissible and did not exist, and there was a public recreational component attached to that. I think this may be a little bit different because it's smaller in size. I mean, those units are the count in those units is, I think, is over 80 units, plus the amount of parking associated with that. So, but again, we can look at that and see if it's possible to melt those issues together, so we don't have a problem with a condition that makes us look at that at preliminary plan.
Okay, great.
I'd just like to, and thank you for all of that, that's terrific. The Booth Pond isn't what's in my mind right now. Since 2019, the town's acquired 100 acres of recreational land that's to the west of Booth Pond.
Okay,
So
yeah.
This
Yeah.
would give, if somebody doesn't want to do the Booth Pond part to the north, they can
Go to
access
yeah, okay, I
access
understand. So,
Right, Souza property, so this would provide
yeah,
access to that.
okay.
property.
Yeah, I agree, that's much better, because that's closer than trying to get to Booth Pond.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, with master plan, we would open up look for a motion to open up for informational meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The informational meeting's open at 7:54. Anyone who'd like to speak, just come up to the microphone. Just ask that you introduce yourself first, and then state your question, comment, or concern if there are any. But we do need you to be at the microphone so everybody can hear you as they
Hello, gentlemen.
follow
My name is
along.
Henry Mata. I actually live in the condominium complex right next door, the 40 Old Wisquisset.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just here just to say, we have a nice private little community there. It's very quiet. That back section does have quite a bit of trees now. So we're just kind of worried about opening that up. I know you guys have great ideas to like bring public up there and everything else, but just know there's a lot of condos there right now. And I've gotten very accustomed to my privacy up there, very quiet. Just worried about, traffic as well. That road is already busy as it is. It's a lot of units coming up there. But again, just realize there's a complex there. And I think we have a really good community that's very quiet, very well kept. I want to make sure this complex is to the same level as we are, right? We worry about our property coming down in value. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up there and just keep that in mind, that that's a big community there. Very clean, very, very quiet. I like to keep it that way if we can.
If I could ask you just
Sure.
to clarify, because you're talking about the trees you're on the backside, the side that faces.
So I'm actually in the
down
unit that's
hill.
going to be right next to this. So the power lines go right
Okay.
behind my house.
Right.
The
But-
Planet Fitness is right
But
behind
is
me.
that treed there? Is that what you're
There,
saying?
there are some tree lines there now where the electrical lines are.
Okay,
I'd love to see more if they're gonna put things there. And it's hard for me because I haven't seen plans on visually where this is gonna sit. Right, I have no idea if it's gonna be against me, away from me. I don't know where the orientation is in the plaza
that might be
itself.
that might be something we could clarify a little bit.
Yeah, we don't know
with
where
the
it's sitting in
engineer,
there.
because It's, yeah, if you
Yeah.
could
So
address
for me, a
that.
good reference is, because you guys have been in the site plenty of times, the Planet Fitness is at the top. There's a hill that comes down that Planet Fitness. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm sure the other folks in the.
Just-
Yeah, sure.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
You're on 3? Okay, so this is the, I guess, the aerial sheet, so the complex. So basically, you got the power easement, so
Yep.
that you got really this buffer, we're not coming into there.
That's the hill on the side of the Planet Fitness, correct?
Yeah, so that's where those units are going in. So, if you wanna go forward 2 sheets. Yeah, so.
Definitely, but without trees and stuff, it's not that big.
If we could
Yeah.
keep the conversation
Yep.
flowing this way.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
the trees that are in this area are not part of like what we're, the area being developed. So you're protected by the easement here. It's gonna help separate to where.
Yeah, I'm worried about the other side of the easement, right? So obviously you can't build on where, the trees on the other side of the electrical lines are on my side, right? It's right behind my house. I'm talking more about after you get the electrical lines.
Yeah, so there's really not much for trees in the actual electric easement, because they keep that
Yep.
cleared. And
And
then
then we
in
go
this
beyond it.
area as well, there's not much for trees. I mean, this is the existing developed area, so this is relatively clear now. This house here and this house here is really, you got some vegetation really around the back side of it. So that's the extent of where we're going. So we're not really removing a whole lot of screening vegetation that's there now.
So can you show me the other photo one more time? I just had a question with the Planet Fitness, but that's a good orientation for me to understand. Because right now, when the Planet Fitness was built, they took a lot of the trees out to get up the hill to build the Planet Fitness, and they never put anything back. So that's why it became empty. So that whole hill up there became empty when they wrecked it to build the Planet Fitness, and they never replanted anything. So that's why it's empty right now.
Yeah, so the Planet Fitness is right here.
Yep. And the parking lot's gonna be on the side of it?
Yeah, it's down the hill between Planet Fitness and Old Louis Pike. So it's located right in that area where the houses are now, and then there was a house that was in here before.
Right. And we are talking about a vegetative border on that parking area. Because I know you can't plant under the power lines, because the National Grid doesn't want you to, but.
And the edge of the parking area is located underneath the.
Oh, is it actually under the power lines?
It's underneath the
Within that?
power
Yeah, so
line.
the parking lot will be pretty close to the condos that are in that area.
Okay.
Just, you guys might wanna take a walk out
Okay.
there, you're welcome, come by my house, take a walk.
Okay,
Just, wanted to throw that out there.
okay.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, can I get your name?
Henry Mata, last name's M-O-T-A,
Okay.
first name's Henry. Thank you.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Ken Paulus, Paulhus, 40 Old Louis Pike. I had asked at the October meeting in 19 for a traffic study, just to see where we were at. One hasn't been taken since probably Dowling Village was started. Does anybody know if there was a traffic study done?
Yeah,
Ms.
we
Mancini?
did do a traffic study, and it's part of the package. that
That's
we
right.
submitted.
Oh, yeah, I did see that in here, yes.
Bader Engineering did do the traffic study.
Right.
How do we make out with that?
I can have Bader Engineering testify that they're present, so we can,
That would be great.
yeah, okay, we can do it right
Actually,
after.
why don't we hold that off?
Yeah.
Are there any other?
Yeah, the traffic study, and Richard, you had said standpipe. We're not gonna have hydrants at that location, they're gonna have a standpipe. Where are they drawing from the standpipe?
So the hydrants are one thing, but a large building like this, you're gonna have long hose lines going from the.
Inside the building.
Into the building, so.
Okay.
Having a standpipe.
Yep, I got it, I just didn't know if you were gonna draw from the pond across the street, okay, that's it. Yeah, noise and everything, like Mr. Motter had said, when you have to exit from CVS or the Fogarty Hospital, exiting Dowling Village, you can't take a left and come down Old Louis Pike, which means all the traffic is gonna come in off 146, so you gotta go around the Lowe's and Walmart, come down, take a right at Taco Bell, and go up the hill. That being said, 90% of the traffic's coming in that way. If there isn't a speed bump to slow them down, and I don't know if Mr. Motter has seen it, but I have, and somebody's gonna get hurt, because they're coming off that highway at 45, 50 miles an hour, and there's no speed bump or hump to slow them down. And if you're taking a right out of the complex to get up to CVS or the light,
That's what you're competing with, yep,
yes,
got it.
and it's adding 60 more cars, as you obviously are gonna put in spaces for.
Right.
I just wonder, that becomes an issue, and that's why I was wondering about the traffic study
Yeah.
and
Well,
what
that's
they
why,
had found out.
yeah, if you don't have anything further, I think we're gonna let
Yep.
them present that traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you.
So that's correct. If you look at page 8 of the Bader Engineering traffic report, it has the conclusions that were provided, and the traffic report was done in 2020, September of 2020, but I'll have Bader Engineering, who's here, testify to it and be available for any questions or comments
That'd
that
be
anybody has.
Thank you. No, we're answering the question.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Herman Peralta. I'm a senior traffic engineer with Beta Group out of the Lincoln, Rhode Island office. I'm a registered professional engineer. I can go through the, quick presentation of this traffic study unless you just want to directly go to questions and answers.
Well, if you could summarize, I mean, I think
Sure.
it's really, it always comes down to numbers, doesn't it?
Right, true. So we looked at specifically just the safety of the the site driver location on Old Exquisite Pike. The reason for that is because the proposed condominium is going to generate very low hourly traffic in relation to the low hour of traffic that's being serviced on Old Exquisite Pike. So for this updated development of 30 units, we're looking at about 14 trips during the morning peak hour, 3 entering and 11 exiting. And then during the PM peak hour, we're looking at about 17 trips, so that's about 10 vehicles coming in and then 7 vehicles coming out. So you're looking at about 9 to 10 vehicles during the morning peak, and then about 8 to 9 vehicles during the afternoon peak. Now, with the traffic on Old Exquisite Pike,
I need to ask a question on that. So
Sure.
from my engineering background. I heard that like there's 11 people leaving in the morning, but only 8 or 9 are coming home at night. So I'm a little concerned about that.
right, in the morning,
Where
you
are they
look,
going?
in the morning, you're looking about, well, some people in the morning, you know, will drop off their children at school and they come back. So that's considered
So you get
2
the round
trips.
trip. Yep.
Right, you know what I mean? So same thing with the afternoon, when they go shopping, you know, next door at Dowling Village, you know, coming out is 1 trip and then coming in is a 2nd trip. So that's what comes out with 2
Right.
trips.
But so out of 60, well, 30, you know, you have 30 units.
Right.
So potentially as much as 60 vehicles. We're looking at 15 in the morning and 18 at night.
Right. Not
That's a lot-
everybody leaves in the
That's a lot of
morning.
cars not moving.
You're talking peak hours, though.
Right, peak hours,
Yeah, so
correct.
peak hours.
Peak
These are
hours.
the rush
That doesn't
hours.
mean that, you know, everybody's gonna be rushing out in 1 hour, everybody that's living within that units.
Right.
Secondly, Old Exquisite Pike services an average daily traffic of 450. That is very low. We're looking at about 35 vehicles during the morning peak and then 35 in the afternoon. And all those traffic is actually coming mostly from, I believe, the Rockcliffe condominiums. Yep, so.
So it's adding about 8% to the.
Right. When you think about it, a road similar to Old Exquisite Pike can service about 1,000 vehicles per hour per lane. And this services
Yeah.
35 per hour per, actually 17 per hour per lane. So
Right.
it's very low volume on Old Exquisite Pike. I actually drove there tonight and
Yeah.
there was no vehicles whatsoever on Old
But how
Exquisite
about,
Pike.
the other concern I heard even more than, I think, quantity is speed.
Speed?
Does your traffic study cover the?
Right, so what we.
People coming in don't really have
Right.
a deceleration. like-
Specifically, we looked at the stopping site distance at the site driver location. We did collect data along, speed data along Old Exquisite Pike, and there's no posted speed limit. We assume that 25 miles per hour due to the residential nature of the area, but based on our measured 85th percentile, we were able to get 37 miles per hour. But even at 37 miles per hour, the stopping site distance is more than sufficient at the site driver location on Old Exquisite Pike.
You said there's currently no posted speed limit as you enter that?
Correct. There's no posted speed limit on Old Exquisite Pike.
Something we could probably get corrected. That seems like that needs to be, I mean, is that a state function or does it depend whether it's?
Not sure.
The roadway is not state-owned, so it is a town, it's under town's jurisdiction, so it would be the town's responsibility to make sure that there's
They
a
normally
posted
have a
speed limit.
general provision in the ordinance that says 25 or whatever, I don't know what that is,
Yeah.
but for all roads, even though it may not be a posted sign, it'll say unposted,
Right.
so
But
it
it'd be
might be
restricted.
25, I just don't know.
But either way, it'd be the responsibility of the town to put the sign up if,
Oh, absolutely,
would
if the
help.
town wants to post it, yeah.
right.
absolutely.
And if I may add to that, Mr. Chairman, if you recall, we did have that discussion in October, and one of the conditions is that the applicant agrees to low-cost safety improvement measures such as speed tables, lighting, and/or signage. So there was no signage back in October of 2019.
Right, but so there's still, part of this project,
Yeah.
you know, the new and improved project, would still be to look at
Yeah.
ways to mitigate the speed, because,
Right,
you know, there's the technical data of, yeah, that's within the stopping
right.
distance and stuff, but that's only if people are paying
Yeah.
attention.
What we recommended is to provide a horizontal curve sign prior to the curve, because there is a horizontal curve just south of the site
Right.
driveway. So maybe a curve would kind of slow people down to let them know, hey, there's a change in alignment, and you need to
Right.
just slow down.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Mata. you have any follow?
That being said, just, and there's 70 units up where we are, I understand that totally. However, there's between UPS, FedEx, Postal, whatever vehicle, delivery, Amazon, whatever delivery vehicles, there's 14, 18 trips a day just with them.
Right.
They're there 5, 6, 7 times a day.
But-
Peak hours. You're talking
Right.
peak hours.
We're talking about peak hours. Again, the amount of traffic in Old Louis Square Pike is an average daily traffic of 450. Now, 35 vehicles
And
during the
that's
morning
total.
peak. That's total
across
all
the
day.
entire right.
And morning peak is about 35 vehicles, and about afternoon peak is 35 vehicles. Now, a McDonald's generates more than 3 times more than what's out on Old Louis Square today. I mean,
Right.
that's how low the traffic is on Old Louis Square Pike. And now, also one thing to note, we expect most of the traffic at the driveway to be right in, right out, because it's a one-way northbound
Right.
on the southerly end, and typically, people who's going to work wants to get to the highway, so they kind of just do the loop, so it's mostly right in, right out.
Right. And I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified, that he was talking about, that's over the course of the entire day, it's, right? But I think the speed issue you brought up is one we'll keep on the list as needing to be addressed.
Right.
All right?
What are the numbers taken? I'm just curious, is this still from 2019 or more?
This was
2020.
March 2018, so this is prior to the COVID.
2018.
So, all right, I'd like to know that, I don't know if this is going to support something, but this is a lot more complex.
Excuse me?
80 units, you got 160 cars that just came in at the 80 units next door.
If I could,
Yeah, I'm sorry,
just,
sir.
no, it's all right, just, if you want to say more, just kind of raise your hand.
I think a more updated report would be nice. And you might be absolutely right, but I'd like to see something a little more.
What was the date?
But the thing is, there hasn't been any development all those squares at Pike, so I expect that the traffic will be pretty much the same.
People come through there, go to the plaza all the time, so. I don't know how to look at the traffic,
Yeah.
if it's just the people living there, and that's what you go in like, but that road is used a lot, where
Okay.
people don't wanna wait the light. and
If I could ask you to, would you like, yeah, we need your name.
The cut through, open windows, throw out the garbage. We watched the woman the other day come, get lost, come down the pipe, pull into the parking lot across the street, jump out of her car, and urinate in the parking lot, right in front of us as we stood on our deck. The buses, if the buses are running late, they fly down the road. The Budweiser truck, the oil trucks, the school bus driver, she's really good, she's only one, dropping off a couple of
Right.
things. But all day, so I don't know, I don't understand, I'm home all day, I see it all day long.
Yeah, there is a sign and entering all those squares at Pike, no through traffic, so people shouldn't be going through there because there is a sign right up there, but obviously it doesn't stop it. But again, I mean, our site is not,
Right.
recommending for people to
here's
cut through, it's just, people
Right.
just do it.
So if I, yeah, and what I would say to that, I mean, some of what you're talking about is enforcement issues, which is not the responsibility of the applicant, of course, but it does sound like it's where, what were you planning for kind of revisiting the traffic recommendations, since it's still on the agenda to look at ways to mitigate, particularly the speed issue?
Right.
Was there another plan, an update to the traffic study, or?
So this has been updated, this was updated in September of 2020. You're referring to?
We actually, yes, we updated actually August of,
So 1 year ago.
Yes, 2020.
no, this was actually August 16th, 2021.
So third,
So it's
Oh.
been updated
this past August. 2
this
months
past
ago.
August, correct?
So it's current data.
Not doing that much different than 2008.
Yeah.
No, that's.
Okay. Yeah, I think some of the other issues you're talking about, certainly the speed issue, they've heard it.
Oh, I definitely
There's-
agree.
we're gonna be
There
looking
might
at
be some
that.
speeding issues there.
And that'll be working with the town.
Right.
Because, and then ultimately it comes down to, an enforcement issue, whether they start putting up the thing that sits there flashing, you're going too fast, those kinds of things.
Unfortunately, the
we'll
roadway
have to take
is
them.
short. It's short enough that when you're driving, northbound, when you see a red light, you start slowing down pretty much halfway
Right,
on the roadway.
right. So I think the key is, I think as you said too, with that curve, getting something that people come in a little less hot.
Right.
That's what happens, they're all coming in hot, so. Great, thank you very much for the explanation and your feedback.
Thank you.
Um, Is there anyone else from the public that would like to get up, make comment, ask questions, et cetera? Not related to traffic? Nothing else? All right, we'll look for a
Make
motion.
a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second to close the informational hearing. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The informational hearing is closed at 8:13. So, thank you for your comments. So, at this point, we are looking at a master plan vote. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I would
Is
think,
there any other discussion first from the planning board before we?
I would think in the least, all the conditions that were put on, all of them inclusive, if they're looking to eliminate one master plan and bring in another one, all of the previous conditions and any new conditions should be
Yeah, I
automatically
think
carried over.
When
Which I
Mr.
think
Mans,
we already agreed with.
I think
but I
Mr.
don't think
Mancini,
it's
when you iterated them,
Yeah.
that was the full list.
Yes.
I think we have added, we've added an additional one, which is to have the Woonsocket Fire Department, be the approving agency, right?
Yeah, well, maybe what we could do is provide a little bit more clarification, especially on items 3 and 4 from the previous master plan approval. We have fire department review, we don't specify which fire department, so, you know, if that's Woonsocket's jurisdiction, we should probably, it is North Smithfield?
Say so.
Okay. And then, review and approval from both the sewer and water authorities. I think because, there are some aspects that tie in with Woonsocket that we should also include North Smithfield and Woonsocket in that issue,
Mhm.
in that aspect too. And one of the other things that I think that we should really, make sure that we, identify that those, how many units did you say were gonna be affordable? 10? Six.
Out of the,
That those 6 affordable units, we have the low and moderate income LMI deed restrictions along with affordable housing monitoring agent contract due at final approval. I think that would certainly be helpful for us as the town to, for our percentages wise that we need to comply with.
That was part of the past approval, so we don't.
And then I would just like to, I would actually separate the dark sky compliant lighting and not have it hinged on tied with the DEM approvals. I think those are kind of two
those are
separate
two
things.
separate things, yep, they are.
So I think, for clarification, just reading off the conditions that we had previously, they have already completed the traffic safety assessment, but I would still say, as Mr. Mancini said, that the applicant agrees to the low-cost safety improvement measures such as speed tables, lighting, and/or signage. The DEM permit approvals must be submitted with the application. Separate out the dark sky compliant lighting. The North Smithfield Fire Department review. The review and approval from both the sewer and water authorities. The National Grid easement authorizing the parking arrangement within the utility right-of-way. Low and moderate income LMI deed restrictions along with the affordable housing monitoring agent contract due at final approval. And I think that
So
would,
there's the one other thing that I heard Mr. Mancini had said as well was the taking more of a terraced approach to that retaining wall and looking at the connectivity possibilities with the area above it, right? So we should add that in as well.
correct.
Can I just, and, I don't mean to derail anything.
Oh, yeah, you do.
No, I really don't, I just,
Sorry.
if, we had a conversation earlier about this technically being a new master plan.
Mhm.
And prior to this, we went through the exercise for 2 projects of certifying complete or incomplete. Well, how are we doing that? Like, are we kind of out of order here by doing this?
We missed the
Oh.
date on the certification,
Okay,
Right,
so we just moved forward.
right. So it is by default certified.
okay. So with that said, if we have until December 6th, should we wait until we have a planner? Just to have, is there any need to? Like we,
Mr. Chairman, and I don't think in this case there's a need to do that. The certification was not done at that time because we had an assistant planner who at that point, the administration did not want to authorize her to do that, and there was
Right.
some confusion about how that should be done. But you have more time if you have unanswered questions and you're not satisfied with the applicant, that's one thing, but this is an application that's been well vetted
okay.
and already
Yeah, it'd be,
pre-certified
right, we're not.
in its previous form.
Right,
That,
I was
We're not
more
dealing with
worried about the
actual missing-
procedural aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yes, we've vetted it, we've asked, you know,
Right,
we have a list of conditions and so
right, the procedure is
understandable.
covered by having passed the time limit.
Okay,
You know,
that's all I was curious about.
All right, that's good. It was only a little bump, not a derail. That's good. Appropriate point. Any other questions, comments before we, I'll be looking for.
Just a clarification,
Mancini?
Mr. Chairman. One of the conditions is that National Grid easement authorizing the parking arrangement within the utility right-of-way. We've already confirmed that we do not need a particular easement to park on the National Grid easement, because the deeds that we have already authorize the parking and the use for parking. So I would just add language that says that if not an easement, some other document authorizing the parking, because we have the deed that already does
So we
that.
can say easement or other document.
Or other document,
Or official
correct,
document,
evidencing parking
Okay.
arrangement with utility.
because it'll be on the deed.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
One-
Mr. King?
One additional thing that we talked about was providing a recreational easement along the property line to provide that access for a.
Yeah, I think it's recreational access, I'm not sure.
Recreational, well,
Easement is sort of illegal, illegal, and we're not providing that easement to any particular entity or
so
something,
it'd
right?
be a public
Right.
easement.
Like a public right-of-way or something.
Yeah,
Is
Well, it's-
National Grid gonna let you do that?
yes,
It's,
yes, they're doing that for the Sousa property, right? That was one of the last things
Right.
Tom did before he left, was,
legitimately on paper there.
yes.
So is that where it needs to come from? Does it have to come from National Grid?
Putting the public underneath their high tension lines,
Yeah.
unheard of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
I can't understand that either.
well, I'm just telling you what we.
But what's the question, you wanted to add a
Well,
stipulation? or-
just to provide that legal, public act, right away.
Okay,
So there is such a thing as a recreational easement. for
We'd
public
be willing,
access.
we'd be willing to take a look at that and investigate it, but I can't agree to that now without looking
Yeah,
at it.
right,
It's
it'll be
definitely
addressed
some-
at preliminary.
Yeah,
That's
Mr.
fine.
Chairman, I don't mean to interrupt. I would defer that question to preliminary.
Yeah.
For the reasons we've discussed in this board many, many times, demanding public access through a private project, I'm not so sure that
Yeah,
that
okay.
is,
So you're saying, we don't even put it in as a stipulation?
don't put it in here
but
now.
we'll-
If you want
but
to
we'll
bring it
raise
up
the
at
issue.
preliminary for discussion, I know how strongly you feel.
Well, because they did it with Dowling Village, that was a,
I'm not familiar with that. We can,
yeah,
I just don't
Right.
want you to make a condition
Right.
to this application
I'm fine with that.
that there be a public access. I just
I think
I
Mr.
just would
Mancini is
strongly-
committed that they'll look into it,
Yeah, that's great.
and that's fair enough.
Gentlemen's agreement.
There we go. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So we'll be looking for a motion to,
I'd make a motion that we approve the master plan that's been submitted, along with the conditions that were stated tonight.
I'll second.
and we have a second. Roll call vote, Mr. Keen,
Yes.
Mr. Fournier,
Yes.
Mr. Punchak,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
Yes.
chair votes yes. So we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's actually a big improvement from 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot cleaner.
We won't blame the pandemic.
There you go.
Well, there was an
Everyone else
opportunity.
does.
See, that gave it an opportunity.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
second.
We have,
Who did that?
we have a motion to adjourn, and we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. There isn't any.
Mike made a motion,